So in this video, I'm going to talk about my own video workstation laptop, which is the ASUS ROG 553VE, and I've had this is actually my working laptop that I use to edit my own videos, to 4K videos, to After Effects and Adobe Premiere, and I've had this laptop for roughly 2 to 3 years now, and I'm going to make a more in-depth, honest reviews from a video editor standpoint of whether or not this laptop is worth it and whether or not you should invest in it or you should look somewhere else for a video editing laptop. So stay tuned. If you haven't pressed that subscribe button, subscribe to this channel if you don't know who I am. Hi guys, my name is Peter. I am a full-time content creator and video editor, videographer of all media sorts and production. And I'm gonna tell you exactly the specs of this laptop. If you haven't watched the other video, I made a more in detail review of this laptop right here, specifically for video editing, and you can check that out somewhere here or in the description below. And my honest opinions of this laptop is it's pretty good for video editing. So the specs itself I have up on here is it has an i7 Kaby Lake processor, which is the 7700 HQ. 7th gen i7 though, it's a little bit outdated. It has a 250 gig SSD as well as a 1 terabyte, which is good to have storage. 1 terabyte hard drive. It has up to 16 gigs of RAM, and it features NVIDIA GTX 1050 Ti, which is subpar, but it does come in handy when it comes to using CUDA or any accelerated graphics when you're video editing. So the pros of this, after 2 to 3 years now, I've made hundreds of videos with just this guy right here. The pros is that it has an i7, right? And that is one of the core essentials when it comes, pun intended, for when it comes to video editing is if you're going to, especially Adobe Cloud, you want something that has a very high processor. Don't even consider getting an i3. And if you're on a budget, maybe consider something with the newest gen i5. But if you had to pick a video editing laptop, make sure you have something with at least an i7 so you won't run into troubles with things like when it's rendering or having previews. So this guy benefits is it also has GTX 1050 Ti, which is pretty good for gaming, but for video editing it's so-so. On top of it's already Intel built-in HD graphics as well. Pros of that, I can render a video and multitask and go on the internet or open up Spotify while I'm editing. Pretty smooth if it comes to things like browsing and video editing and multitasking. And I really don't, after the initial, when you first buy a laptop, you'll get things like the blue screen of death. Don't be afraid of that. Just make sure you optimize all your drivers as well as having the latest Adobe Cloud. And I guess that's it for the pros, or what I like about it is that, you know, it does its job pretty fast. And I haven't had any issues with it yet. Okay, now I'm gonna go into major issues. Now I'm going into the cons of it. And first off the bat, I'm currently rendering a video. And if you can hear this, let's just have a moment of silence. That's the laptop actually rendering a 4K video right now. And I think first con is that it does get pretty loud. For an i7 with its fan, it does get pretty loud. And if you're editing anywhere in like a library, you might be a little bit of a disturbance if someone is right next to you. Another con of it is that I have the 15-inch screen and it is pretty heavy. So this isn't like one of those carry around and go to the coffee shop type of video edit. Like you can, but the battery life is not that good. Maybe you'll get like an hour and a half. If you're lucky, 2 hours of video editing on this before it dies. So I usually keep this always plugged in, so just be aware of that. And the brick itself to plug this is pretty big. And another thing about this laptop is I've had just normal wear and tear, this actually has a CD drive, and the case on the end is starting to break off, and like maybe that's my fault from carrying it around. But like I said, this is not necessarily a grab and go laptop, and it's bulky. And on top of that, I think a con of it is that it's using an older gen i7. I wish it had a little bit more of memory as well. I wish I got in a 32 gig memory as well. And I could also tell like the hard drives that they used or picked wasn't the highest optimal quality. But you know, you're in the business of selling laptops and you want to have your margins. Yeah, I get it. And if you're running anything like Adobe Premiere, scrubs through fine, unless you're using a lot of things like adjustment layers, color correction. After Effects, then it might have a little bit of an issue, but it's still 2 or 3 years later, it still does the job. But if you're someone who solely edits only 4K videos, and even with proxies, it does lag a little bit, so just be aware of that. But in terms of editing let's say a 20-minute 4K video, it's roughly half an hour for that. So you're essentially looking like a minute and a half per minute of a 4K video with CUDA turned on. And it's not that bad. It does a job. Just be aware that you have to make sure all your drives are updated and making sure you have the latest Adobe Cloud. Because when I first got this, just be aware that I had a lot of blue screen issues, blue screen of death. And it was really frustrating. And I guess another thing is that the hard drive itself, it's the hard drive, not the SSD, is a little slow. And yeah, that is my honest overall tidbits, pain points when it comes to still using this guy. And I'm actually looking to upgrade, but it still does its job. But if I were to upgrade right now, I would much recommend, if you had the budget, if you're looking for a budget laptop, I would recommend this guy, right? If you're at home, don't want a big clunky space, then get this guy versus getting a workstation. And it is cheaper now, so definitely check it out. Link is in the description. But for me personally, I'm actually looking to upgrade this guy, and I'm looking to get the SPX 15 with the i9 with the GTX 1650 with 32 gigs of RAM. That is my ideal to replace this guy. But if you're wondering if I still use this guy, this is actually my video workstation laptop. I still use it. It still runs somewhat great. And link is in the description, you want to check it out. And also, if you want to support me and my channel, I do have courses on how you use a camera, how do you edit in Adobe Premiere, all that, links in the description. Support me. My name is Peter. I make content to help you guys as well as document my own story. And you're watching a Broke Visionary Collective where we all start with nothing, but you can always create something.